All right, YouTube, we are back for another weekly analysis. I've got some nice detailed high time frame charts for you. I've got some chart notes for those charts as well. So let's dive right into it. First, we're going to start off with the US dollar. It looks as though Friday really threw a stick in the proverbial spokes of that motion. Friday came in and just erupted to the upside. We'll take a look at that on a slightly smaller time frame in just a moment. For those of you that would like to read my notes for the upcoming week, this is how I'm viewing structure and flow across multiple time frames. This is just a nice little gift to you. This is how I'm reading things. So essentially what we're going to go and find out is that this supply was broken by Friday's price action. Buyers stepped in a real big way. One of two things happens. One, they stick to their guns. We get a transition, buyers take control. That's going to look like a 4-hour transition after this big pump to the upside. Scenario number two, this fails to continue very far. We get a further push to the downside and we see the dollar fade into the daily higher low or the weekly demand zone. That would make a lot of sense. However, Friday's behavior definitely threw a little bit of a curveball. When we go to look at the 4-hour chart, we can see that we had this massive bit of consolidation here, right? Consolidation, as we know, means transitional market phase. Somebody needs to decide who's going to add some more orders in and who's going to shift the scales of the market. Well, it turns out price pushed down, tapped into something that buyers liked, and they full sent it. Now, our question is, do we see a new demand created after this eruption to the upside? Do we get a new demand? Does that new demand make new highs and start to switch our flow into higher ceilings, higher floors, aka bullish flow? So that's really my big question heading into this new week. And that's going to correlate to a lot of different pairs, right? The dollar index is a weighted composite of the dollar's performance against other major currencies or all the other currencies, right? So if the dollar is going really, really strong, then obviously we're going to see that come to fruition. Nice bullish flow, new higher demand, new higher floors, higher ceilings. And then we can sell everything that is dollar backed, theoretically. So this is an interesting little bit. I am looking for price to stay above the daily NH4 demand that I have marked out here in a red box. If price action can do that, which I would anticipate it's going to, then we should see a new flow switch and a push higher up, depending on the chart that you have, into some of these supplies. I know that we use different DXY or dollar index charts, but that's my read on the dollar coming into the new week. We need a little bit more data, but it does look as though we're getting some intraday bullish pressure for the dollar, buyers appreciation. So we'll see. There's a lot going on right now, right? There's a lot of fundamental talk. There's a lot of everything from oil to COVID to presidencies to left to right to whatever it is, right? So there's a lot of shit going on. There's a lot of things in the ether. What we want to know is, does price action establish bullish flow? If not, this is a bit of an overshoot and we're still bearish. We're still moving down into that daily higher low, weekly demand zone. So that's that. If you want to go back and read my notes, you can pause right now or go back to the beginning of this video. On to the next pair. AUDUSD, one of my favorites. I've got time frame notes for you here as well. Leave those right there. You can take a quick read. So on our big high time frames, our structure is bullish. Like our weekly, we had this big retest. And that's what essentially this was. In terms of structure on our daily, technically, I think we are bearish. This is my valid level of structure. None of these were. That being said, I do not focus on structure all too much because I do not believe that it is king. Instead, I'm more focused on what's going on right here. I can see a bullish pattern of appreciation. We got a nice expansion to the upside. Last week was kind of lame duck. So the question for me personally, as I move into smaller time frames, is can this keep up or will we get a pullback in relation to this overall move, this whole thing, right? So that's question one. If we break below this daily demand, then we are switching high time frame flow and we can anticipate a pullback in relation to this leg and then, maybe that in the future. So keep that in mind. If we break below daily demand, we're starting a higher time frame pullback. If instead price comes into this area, finds new demand and creates a new high, then we're simply just getting some sideways movement and a continuation to the upside. Either way, I am leaning bullish on this until daily demand is broken. Looking at the H4, it looks something like this. Like I said, pretty ugly, pretty messy. This is my H4 demand. This would be the first hint that flow could be switching. If price can follow through past that, then we are indeed ending this bullish run and pulling back against it. Nothing in here that I would want to take a trade off of yet. I would most likely wait for a new push to the upside and then possibly a retracement relative to that. On to the next one, EURUSD, also a victim of Friday's crazy price action. Sorry about that. Here is the notes for you that I have marked out. Let you read those for just 1 second. So on Friday, we can see we had this massive sell-off. I have a little line that says, why did this happen here? So big push to the downside. And if we start to zoom out a little bit and we look at a higher time frame, we have a weekly break of structure over here, and we've been pushing down quite heavily. So downside does make quite a bit of sense. In terms of structure, our daily lower high is all the way up here. However, we've now broken this bullish flow that was trying to do a little bit of a retracement, right? We see that we broke the ceiling here. Buyers tried to step in. I'm interested in what happens next. Can we continue to push into new lows? If so, I think we're extending. Do we see price pull back up and do something like, for example, this, then try and make that run down? That would make a lot of sense too, and still keep us within a bearish scenario. However, if price decides to instead push into new highs here, this was just a very funky pullback, and we're loading up for a pullback relation to a larger time frame thing. Sorry, that's my puppy in the background. We would be loading up if we broke to the upside for a pullback in relation to our daily lower high, this whole leg right here. So do keep that in mind if you're a EURUSD trader moving into this new week. I'm leaning towards dollar up, which would mean EURUSD down. But with that being said, anything can change. The beauty of price action is that we can read it either way, right? So yes, I would like to see continuations to the downside on this. I don't know if it's set up quite yet, but I'm leaning that way. If we break above this red box, for example, this current daily supply, which I would kind of doubt, but if it did happen, then we would be extending this pullback in relation to this whole leg. So keep that in mind. Here's what our 4-hour chart looks like. You can see that we broke some flow here, very big bearish behaviors. And I'm personally going to just be looking for a continuation fade to the downside and try and print new lows. GBPUSD, one of my favorites. Again, I've got notes for you over here. Go ahead and read them if you feel so inclined. Another victim of Friday's price action. You can see that we have been in this big push to the downside on GBPUSD. Back here, we broke some structure and we really committed to the bearish send. Now, this big push to the downside was important because this gave us a big leg on down. Now, naturally, we understand that if price pushes down, at some point, we've got to get a pullback and grab some new orders. Price comes in, grabs those orders. Now we're getting a transition. I love the idea of GBPUSD bearish plays coming into this new week. I just needed to set up right, and it looks like it is. I'm getting a daily break of flow. My lower time frames are transitioning as well. So now my job is to find an opportunity in relation to this. I want to see follow through if I do get a position past this major daily demand here, and then we're really good. And we can swing this thing all the way into flow lows or lower. If instead price decides to break above this supply, I'm just sitting. I'm doing nothing because I'm still within this big bearish leg. Above the green zone, I start to look long-term bullish. However, it's just not there. So until that can happen, or until we react with a demand level that makes sense and switches our flow and structure, I just can't look long on this because of the high time frames. For now, I'm preparing for short moves heading into this next week. Let's actually hop over to GBP JPY first, and then we'll look at EJ. GJ main pair that I have, big push to the upside, right? Massive push, similar to EJ that we'll look at in just a second. We have this massive weekly extension to the upside. Again, what pushes must pull back. So Big push on up, looks like we might be starting that retracement. Now you could very well counter trend fade this all the way down into these areas. I think a sensible target is like 152.500 for a short target, but then you want to start to look at buying this area where buyers really started to step in. Okay, because overall pro trend, we are looking bullish, but when we come into these smaller time frames, we had this massive 2-week run to the upside. No pullbacks, barely even chances to get in for the most part. But now we've broken our flow. We can see that sellers are starting to come in, or profit taking is happening and sell orders are getting slammed on top. Either way, price is starting to push down. So I would love something in relation to this behavior to be able to short it to the downside. And I would have some initial targets over here, and then obviously over here where my weekly demand lives. So looking for potential shorts this week, this is definitely on my radar, looking for GBP JPY counter trend shorts into potentially, depending on how well this moves in the next week or two, pro trend long positions. So really planning this one out ahead of time, but I think that a short situation counter trend here makes sense. If you're comfortable with that, if you're not comfortable with that, then just sit out and wait for the pro trend longs in a week or two. All right, EURJPY for our last one, very similar to GBP JPY. We saw this massive eruption to the upside, huge weekly break of flow here. This is our daily chart. We can see the price pushed very, 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 very high, and now we're just kind of moving sideways. Very similar to GJ. As we start to look in here on the details, we can see that, yeah, we are getting a bearish flow. We had a break of flow right here. Sellers are definitely showing their hand. I want to see a crack personally below this blue zone and then a pullback in relation to that. So if I can get a crack below the current demand and then a pullback in relation to that, I can look for a short move at least down into this area, you know, roughly like 129,500. So that's my plan. Again, counter trend fade into a pro trend long further down. But for right now, we've got to send that counter trend market into, you know, maybe week 2 or so of November. And that's it for my weekly analysis on these pairs. Hopefully that gives you some insight on the things that I'm looking at. Pause stuff if you need to read it, go back, watch it again. Week 1 played out absolutely beautifully. You know, guys, I've been doing this for years. This is not my first rodeo. Generally, I like to think that my high time frame analysis is both objective and accurate. So if it's good, you know, give me a thumbs up, like, subscribe, throw me a comment below, show me some love. This is the only way that I'm going to be interacting with the public, really. So, you know, show me that you love it, and I'll keep on doing it, and I'll keep on making it better. So have a great week. Trade safe, trade smart. If you need anything, drop a comment below or hit me up on Instagram at MightyFine. Otherwise, enjoy your Halloween and have an awesome week. Peace.